Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about the QGIS 3D viewer. So the 3D environment is obviously one of the most intuitive ways to visualize data, and that's probably because we experience the world in 3D. So the 3D viewer came out with QGIS 3, so it's a fairly new feature, and as such, every new release of QGIS every 4 months, there are new features related to 3D scenes. So it's a rapidly evolving feature, and I'm going to show you how this works. We can bring all the different kinds of data into 3D, so vector, raster, mesh data, and point clouds, which was just added in the last 6 months. So I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint and into QGIS. Okay, so I'm in QGIS and I've set up a separate Mount Rainier map document for the 3D view, the Mount Rainier 3D. So we just have two layers here, the DEM and the hillshade, which are actually both pulled from the same DEM and styled in different ways. And to start a new 3D view, it's fairly simple. I'm going to go to the View menu and choose New 3D Map View. So this new map view is a panel. So as we try to move it around the GUI, it's going to try to dock itself to the interface. So beware of that. So you can see if I do that, it's going to try to dock to the upper part of my map canvas. So for purpose of this demo, I'm going to drag my main QGIS window onto my other monitor out of view and just work with my 3D map view in this monitor by itself. So we have the 3D map view, and we have a navigation panel here. So the first thing we need to do is go into the options here and configure our 3D view. The most important thing is to tell it what kind of terrain we're working with. Instead of flat terrain, I'm going to choose DEM raster, and I'm going to choose the DEM in my map document as the elevation layer. There are some other settings in here. You can adjust the vertical scale. So if you're in a particularly flat area, you can extrude the elevation to make that more pronounced. There's also tile resolution and skirt height. So skirt height is one option that can help to adjust. When we move this into 3D, sometimes you'll end up with tiling, and I'll try it at this default skirt height, and if I run into that, I'll come back here and change it to a larger number to try to minimize the seams in the 3D view. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and it's building the 3D view here. I'm going to click the full extent button, and now we can start to navigate through the scene. So I'm just going to use the controls on this panel here, which you can toggle off and on, the on-screen navigation. And I can click this tilt down button to start tilting this into 3D. And you can see this little white seam appearing here. This is something that can be minimized if we go into the configuration and increase this skirt height. So let's go ahead and try this again. So now with a bigger skirt height, we don't see that scene forming. We get a smoother appearance. And I can use the compass to rotate and the zoom tools to zoom into the terrain and zoom out. And we have the opposite tilt here. So you have all the necessary tools that you need to move around. You can use the left mouse button to pan at the current extent as well. Another option we have while we're in here is to set up an animation. So we can start playing the default animation that the view comes with. So it'll usually come with a 0 and 5 second keyframe. So if I choose this 0 keyframe, that is this kind of default angular view of the terrain. The 5 second keyframe is zoomed out. So I'm going to remove this 5 second keyframe. So I just have the 0. And then I can start adding keyframes to create an animation. So perhaps I want to tilt the terrain a little bit and zoom in and call that keyframe at 2 seconds. I can then spin the terrain a little bit, add another keyframe at 3 seconds, and so on until I've created a view that I'm interested in or shows the particular features of the terrain that I'm trying to share with the audience. I'll add this at 5 seconds, and then I'll just continue rotating this. We'll do a tour around Mount Rainier here. And then I'll zoom out to finish the animation. And add that as a keyframe for 10 seconds. So now that I've added a number of keyframes, I can start playing my animation by clicking this button down here, and QGIS will move between the different keyframes that I've set up based on the time intervals I've set. And if I wanted to create an animation from this, I would click this diskette button and save this out the same way I would save out an animation from the temporal controller. And then I could use something like GIMP to stitch that together. Another nice option we have in the 3D viewer is this button here for exporting the 3D scene. So we can export this out to a file that we can use to work on this model further in a software like Blender that's designed explicitly for 3D viewing. So you can start an animation or start a 3D scene in QGIS and finish it up in another software like Blender by exporting it. There's also a measure tool. Identify features is available if you have vector features. And if I'm just interested in exporting this out as a 3D scene, I can save as image and export this out as an image. The view menu is for any map themes that you've set up, and I don't have any, so that doesn't come into play here. So this is a quick demo of how to work with the 3D views in QGIS. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint because I have a couple more things I'd like to share with you. QGIS also has support for point clouds, and when you have a point cloud in a QGIS project and open up a 3D view, it recognizes it immediately and extrudes it into 3D. So here I have a point cloud for a small town in the Netherlands named Delft, and it pulls it in exactly the way it looked in QGIS, but extrudes it into 3D and then allows me to start navigating. And here I'm showing a couple other features. There's the possibility to enable shadows and eye dome lighting in QGIS, which, especially with point clouds in 3D, help define the building structures and give some definition to those features in 3D space a little bit more. And there's also a QGIS to 3JS plugin, so this is related to 3D. It's a plugin that you can install and load, and it comes with this QGIS to 3JS exporter. And you open this up, and it will bring your data right into 3D without having to do anything, especially if it's elevation data like this. And you can begin to navigate around the scene. You can also, from the scene menu, export this into a 3D view that you can view on the web. So if you do that, it's going to just export the necessary files. It takes care of all of it. And this index HTML will be what you open up to bring this into the web. And so I can show you what this looks like. Here is my 3D view in a web browser. I'm just opening up that index HTML that I was just looking at in File Explorer, and it allows me to very easily navigate around this 3D scene on the web. It's very performant. It has a really nice feel to it, and it also, this plugin gives you this nice sky background. So this is another thing that you might want to experiment with if you're wanting to build a 3D view, especially if you want one online. So that is a short tutorial on how to use 3D within QGIS.